What's up, everybody? Today I'm going through 5 of the biggest ADP movers in the month of August. 5 players who, again, started off as much more lower, middle round, even late round targets. But whether it was coach speak, preseason performance, injuries, for one reason or another, they have been skyrocketing up the ranks. And today we're going to be trying to figure out whether that is warranted or if we should be fading the newfound public trust. So with that, let's get after it with 49ers rookie wide receiver, Jauan Stribling. Started off, guys, on August 1 as the wide receiver 61, pick 148 over Underdog Fantasy, but by August 24th, wide receiver 51, pick 114. Certainly on the rise, but for good reason. Okay, this was a perfect storm of Ricky Pearsall having the season-ending knee injury. Great training camp reports from seemingly everyone they asked about Stribling in the first place, and then also just an objectively awesome preseason from Stribling himself. So recently we did have the quote from Brock Purdy after the 49ers second preseason game, just again hyping him up, kind of repeating the same stuff we've heard from Trent Williams, Kyle Shanahan, and everyone else. He's a smart kid. He's come in, learned our offense. He's got strong hands, great route runner, all the things. The reasons why we drafted him, he's showing it and proving it. And yeah, he seriously is showing it. Caught 11 of 13 targets for 109 yards on only 22 preseason routes. That's the craziest part here, guys. We're talking about pretty much one half of football, and the man's already gone for 11 catches and 109 yards, about to put up a Brandon Marshall freaking stat line and catch 22 or 23 passes or whatever it was in one single football game. So, yeah, he did drop the likely 33-yard touchdown. Absolute dot from Mac Jones, by the way, on that one. But even that play, it almost kind of gave us another answer to the question, can he win downfield? Real nice stutter step double move to get that separation in the first place. So not trying to glaze the man too hard here, all right? I do think it's a little bit annoying when we say, well, yeah, I mean, drop the touchdown, but that's actually a good thing because the separation, I understand. But man, pretty much a lights out preseason from a guy who, again, was good enough to be picked at the top of round 2 in the first place. Why this rise in the ADP streets would make sense. We've seen Kyle Shanahan consistently make more with less in his passing games, okay? And this, honestly, was what got me most willing to not spoil everything, but most willing to kind of buy into some of this hype because, man, 2020, we had the COVID Thursday night game where pretty much the entire wide receiver room in San Francisco was ruled out. What happened? Richie James, 9 catches, 184 yards, a touchdown. We had the original Jauan Jennings breakout game, 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. And again, Jennings, good wide receiver. We've determined that over the years, okay? When he was asked to step in to a bigger voluminous role, he did good things with it. But that's kind of the point. It wasn't like Jauan Jennings was flashing this tantalizing receiving ability and 49ers fans were crying for more Juan. Yeah, third and Juan was cool. Obviously had the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl and everything. He did okay here and there, but the second that we had Ayuk go down in 2024 and Debo was playing injured, we weren't maybe getting the same thing out of the rest of the wide receivers. Jauan was able to seamlessly pick up, as we saw with Kendrick Bourne last season. Back-to-back games with 142 yards, guys. Even in the wild card when they had over the Eagles, DeMarcus Robinson, of all people, 6 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown in his own right. So that's 5 pretty freaking massive games from wide receivers that, again, really just respectfully had no business doing that. But because of Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones for the Kendrick Bourne games, we were still able to get big-time production. So if there was a system in the NFL that we should expect to be able to prop up lesser talented players, it's this one. And who's to even say Stribling's a lesser talented player in the first place? But truly, that would be kind of the last point about why this move makes sense. Brock Purdy, number 1 in the Super Bowl era in yards per attempt and passer rating. Do I think he is the best quarterback the last 60 years? No. And I'm not going to slander him either and call him assistant quarterback. That dude moves way too well, out of structure, off script, and when he keeps the play extended to be slandered like that. But man, Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, and even for a stretch from Mac Jones, we've seen this partnership lead to all kinds of results, pretty much regardless of who has been out there catching the ball. Why this rise in the rank maybe doesn't make sense? Stribling still does profile as a number 4 pass game option pretty definitively when everyone's healthy. Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans, George Kittle, Jauan Stribling. I think an objective person would say in week 1, we should expect CMC, Evans, and Kittle to get more targets. Now, all 3 of those guys haven't exactly had the cleanest injury track records over the years. All 3 of those guys, 30-plus years old by week 1. In Kittle and Evans' case, even older than that. Kittle's coming back from the Achilles injury. Allegedly the not so bad Achilles version. CMC had the tightness. Allegedly something that they plan to take off. Definitely, could have mentioned that while he was missing time, but whatever. Mike Evans, similarly leaving every other practice with a new issue. So I reject the idea that Christian McCaffrey is a 10 out of 10 injury prone. And what's a decent example? Like Chase Brown's a 0 out of 10, okay? I do accept that CMC is more injury prone, more at risk of injury than someone like Chase Brown and generally running backs. It's just not this 10 out of 10 or 0 out of 10 sort of binary proposition. And I think similar sentiment is true for Mike Evans and George Kittle. Are we absolutely positive Stribling is ahead of guys like Deebo Samuel, Christian Kirk, and Demarcus Robinson? Not 100%, but I'd be pretty damn shocked at this point if that's the case. Even got some word out of 49ers practice on Sunday saying Jalen Watkins working ahead of Deebo Samuel now with the way that they're kind of doing things. So Jordan Watkins, excuse me. I'll get my push-ups in, watch the film, and get better. Christian Kirk's been banged up. D-Rob, good player. Ravens fans know. Chiefs fans know. This dude's been on a lot of teams. That double move. Even Rams fans, man. He had like 7 touchdowns that one year. Double move, and he's got this quick out. It's not even a blaze out. It's like a one-step out the goal line. He scored like 4 touchdowns on it in 2024. Couldn't believe my freaking eyes, people. Stribling is the number 4 pass game option, but every single person ahead of him, I think we can agree, sure seems like they carry a little bit more injury risk than your average running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So it takes me to my verdict. I am buying Jauan Stribling as a borderline wide receiver 3, okay? I have moved him up to wide receiver 38 in my rankings. That is behind Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas Jr., Quentin Johnson, DK Metcalf, Jaden Reed, and Chris Godwin. It is ahead of Stephon Diggs, Josh Downs, Jordan Addison, Michael Wilson, and also Matthew Golden. Round 7-8 pick sounds about right for me. I'm sure some people are going to be chasing him up even higher. And I will say, the guys I have him behind still, if you wanted to say you're not scared of them, I don't really blame you. I'm giving Marv the benefit of the doubt because when he was in Arizona last year on the field with Michael Wilson, we did see good things. He unfortunately didn't get the benefit from the improved quarterback play with Jacory Brissett under center, third-year player. I still do truly in my heart of hearts believe there is a talented wide receiver somewhere in that 6'4", 220-pound muscle-bound frame as we see every offseason. BTJ, 1,200 yards as a rookie. That happened. Was absolutely lights out down the stretch of the season. Right? I understand last year had a little bit of the yips going. It's a little bit of a crowd in offense, but man, that still matters to me. DK Metcalf, Pittman's in town. It's still Metcalf, man. Boomer bust wide receiver 3 with upside for even higher, as we've seen. He was finished as a low-end wide receiver 2 last year. So did Quentin Johnston. Jaden Reed's the man in an offense that we also love. Chris Godwin, first name out of Baker Mayfield's mouth, by the way. Chris Godwin, when talking about the wide receivers, allegedly looks better. So I'm going Stribling, borderline wide receiver 3. For me, it's just seeing, again, one, not to insult the guys, but relatively replacement level receiver after another put up all kinds of big numbers when the 49ers needed them to. And now when they actually put draft capital behind the dude, he checks every single box on the field from what we're hearing with the coaching staff. And now with the opportunity going his way with injuries to Pearsall, with Evans already being banged up, Kittle coming back, maybe there for week 1, maybe not. Wheels up, Jauan Stribling, what a time to be alive. Next up, we got Panthers running back Jonathon Brooks. August 1st, this was the RB34 going pick 94. August 24th, RB29 pick 77. Why did he move up? Well, pretty simple. 2 factors here. Good news out of training camp regarding his health. Again, this was someone who we did not get to see play the entirety of the 2025 season. So it was kind of a question mark about how healthy is this guy even going to be at this point in time. And then a lack of health for one Chuba Hubbard. Suffered the unfortunate hamstring injury that has left him week to week. Hopefully will be out there in week 1. We did actually hear from Dave Canales himself, quote, if Chuba is good to go, it will be running back by committee with Brooks in week 1. But yeah, no Chuba. Brooks not only healthy, but now getting the chance to potentially take over the situation like we saw Rico Dowdle do last season. And you can see why the public's been getting very hypey here on Jonathon Brooks. And again, I do think it makes sense to an extent, particularly just the usage we've gotten from Brooks. And that is the big thing for preseason, guys. If you caught my long-winded preseason pods, thank you for checking them out, by the way. And also, in case you didn't know, hey, love the YouTube streets. I appreciate you guys hanging out. But if you do like the audio podcast, form better, I do have links to Apple and Spotify. Couldn't freaking remember the only two podcast forums we ever talk about, but whatever. Those are in the channel description here with Fantasy Football with Ian Hartitz. Just want to throw that out there. And yeah, appreciate you. The big thing for Jonathon Brooks, though, and we'll have elaborate on the preseason pods, performance is cool. The usage is what we pay attention to the most in the preseason with the first team. That's what we care about, not these unofficial depth charts where we never know what's actually happening, who's setting them. We get the oars with the first team starters. We care about the first team usage. And man, it has been all Jonathon Brooks over Trevor Etienne this entire preseason. So if Chuba was in there, I'm sure it would be approaching something closer to 50-50. But man, the fact that we're kind of already at that point is really good relative to where we were at 3-4 weeks ago. We figured it'd be a committee of some shape or size, but some committees are 70-30 in favor of the starter and some are 50-50. It sounds like Chuba and Brooks are leaning towards the latter. And that's great news because, again, if we do see Brooks regain the form that made him the number one running back drafted in the 2024 draft class in the first place, it's going to be exciting, especially when he's going up against Chuba Hubbard, who declined last year while playing through injury and is now already injured again. Brooks, reminder, just turned 23 years old in July. This is a young player who was drafted highly out of Texas after serving his time behind Bijan Robinson and now is set up to potentially be the lead back running behind the most expensive offensive line in the league, at least in terms of $26 spent. That's the bull case. Why this doesn't make sense. Chuba is not dead. In fact, we even heard from him as I'm recording this on Monday, August 24th. Chuba, quote, "To be honest, I feel pretty good. I think the coaches and obviously the training staff are just trying to take care of me. Obviously, last year I kind of came back a little early and it kind of lingered on for a little bit. So I think it's them kind of protecting me from myself a little bit. I would have been out the next day if I could have, but I feel good. I feel healthy. Looking forward to week one, obviously." It's the middle of August. No, late August. Football's almost here, baby. Let's go. Panthers are being smart with the guy, just like the 49ers probably were with CMC and the tightness, whether that was a real thing or not. Chuba is alive, presumably on track for week one, and we just don't know the exact terms of the committee. There's a chance nothing has changed other than we've seen Brooks go out there and have a lot of touches, which is good. Hasn't been that great, though. And I know what I said, usage over production. I wouldn't mind seeing a highlight or two. We got everyone going over bonkers over him falling to the end zone from 1 yard out. Okay. And touchdowns are fun. I get it. The dude's converted 8 carries and 23 yards in that one short touchdown. And he caught a 9-yard pass. It's the preseason. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. We live on a rock that floats around a ball of fire. I don't think Brooks's burst has looked that great. Believe me, if we got a highlight that was really worth highlighting from Brooks, it would be everywhere. Do you guys remember the first week of August, there was a Panthers beat reporter doing what he's paid to do. Just, give us anecdotes from practice and stuff, not slandering him. But he basically said Jonathon Brooks caught the pass, put his foot in the ground, and really got upfield fast. It was like fan fiction, and the fantasy community went nuts. There are certain players who just get steamed, and they tend to be young guys who have a bunch of truthers in the dynasty streets and the NFL draft streets. And we were just itching to get off that victory lap tweet, to be able to pull back what you said in March at minute 94 in your running back sleeper podcast and say, I told you, I was right, you were wrong, etc. It's the world we live in. Not here. We like to chill out over here. You guys get it. Jonathon Brooks could be the RB1, but he could also be the clear RB2. We don't know. The only thing that has changed usage-wise that we now know is that he is clearly the RB2 and Trevor Etienne is not a factor, which is good news for his handcuff upside. But man, when you do want to go ahead and look at some of the running backs that he is going way ahead of, you're putting a lot of stock in the idea that he is going to displace Chuba Hubbard and based on what we've seen Brooks do on the field and based on the injury timeline from Chuba Hubbard, assuming he's back at 100% by week 1, not a guarantee, but given the fact what we've heard from Chuba, the timeline, it seems reasonable. If we're going Brooks as high as he's going right now, man, like, is there that big of a difference between him and now an injured Cal Monungai coming back, or the Washington running backs, or Kenneth Gainwell, or Jordan Mason? All those running backs could also be better than the Panthers on better offenses than the Panthers. Panthers could be okay. They haven't been the last 2 years, though. Dave Canales hasn't led a top 20 ranked scoring offense with the Buccaneers. He didn't do it with the Panthers the last 2 years. Maybe Bryce Young makes the leap. I wouldn't exactly assume it's going to happen. RotoWire has this offensive line. Where do we rank them? It's not great. 29th. And a lot of that has to do with the injuries going on. Taylor Moton with the blood clots. Their tackle that had the season-ending late-year knee injury. 29th, though. And look, I've seen other offensive line judgments around the industry have them higher, have them a lot higher. They're one of the more volatile ones I think I've seen of any group. But I'm Team RotoWire, so I do like looking at RotoWire. And I also really trust and respect what Brandon Thorne does over at Establish the Run. He's got him 25th. Rookie Monroe Freeling, he's going to have to be in there early. It's not a given. We don't necessarily love the offensive line. It's an offense that hardly gets the benefit of outscoring. And okay, it could be 50-50. Maybe he takes over eventually. But we really want to chase that up? Round 5 or 6 potentially? I think I'm selling this one, guys. He's my RB30. I got Chuba RB36. And honestly, that feels a little low. I feel like I'm counting out Chuba a little bit. It's kind of like the Cortland Sutton of wide receivers. I understand the fantasy points are going to be there and the volume to some extent. Doesn't make it any easier to click. I like to think fantasy football that we can have fun while making responsible decisions. It's not fun to click Cortland Sutton. It's not fun to click Chuba Hubbard either. But I don't know that Jonathon Brooks is the answer to that. Way too many good wide receivers where he's going. Honestly, some pretty awesome quarterbacks there as well. Jonathon Brooks, to me, round 5, 6, that's a little steep. If we can go 7+, we're not getting chased up over the ambiguous. That's why it's an ambiguous backfield. It still is. I admit, I think Brooks has a little more takeover ability than definitely does than someone like Blake Corum, for instance. But Pittsburgh, Washington, Minnesota, these situations that we all kind of agree are fairly wild right now. Like we're giving Jonathon Brooks the Bucky Irving or Travion Henderson treatment. I don't think he deserves it. We're giving the Bashal Tutin over Chris Rodriguez treatment. If any of those, I think it's more likely he's the Travion of the equation and Chuba's the Ramondre. He's the new shiny thing that we haven't gotten to see, and it would be a great story if Jonathon Brooks returns to full health and just runs wild this year. I hope you drafted him when he was a little bit cheaper. I can't get behind the round 5, 6 price tag. Throwing out a lot of ranks today, everyone. So if you want to check out the full thing for yourself, head over to RotoWire.com and use code Ian35 for 35% off my expert rankings and the rest of our cool tools, content, and everything over at RotoWire. I'm grinding out multiple articles per week and will be throughout the season, all right? That's the thing. It is draft season right now, and it's important. But guess what? Spoiler. Let you guys know a little, insider tip here. A lot of teams look really good in August, okay? I guess the injury guys are already just ravaging everyone right now, so that's not ideal. But every week throughout this season, I'm going to be doing my Sheesh Report, Beyond the Box Score notes, where after I watch every single game, I go through and I tell you about the drop touchdowns, the overthrown touchdowns, unrealized air yards, guys tackle at the 1 yard line, couldn't score. I do find it to be unique in the industry, and I do think it's a great way to help find buy low candidates. Also going to be doing quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, tiers and notes, man. going through the best buy lows, going through the best upcoming schedules. All that in written form in the year 2026, grinding. And with that, man, I'm going to be updating the ranks the whole damn time. So waiver wire, start sit tools. There's so much more too. But if you guys trust my content, if you trust my ranks, first of all, thank you. We are out here grinding day in and day out. If you want to support that, code EN35, rotowire.com. Check it out. Another player's ADP has been on the rise throughout August. We got Commanders RB Jacory Croskey-Merritt, the artist known as Bill, started off August as the RB 40, pick 119. By August 24th, though, guys, he is up to the RB 37, pick 101. Now, he actually hasn't even played in the preseason yet. So how could this possibly be happening? Well, in these muddled, ambiguous backfields, particularly in a good offense, or one we think could be good at least, like the Washington Commanders, once we do get clarity, that's when we start seeing moves like this. So specifically from the Athletics Ben Standig, talking about Bill being their RB1. He has kind of released his depth chart and said that, but recently he noted the possibility for a running back by committee, but crucially stated, quote, I think Bill's pass blocking has improved enough that he should see some snaps on passing downs. White will play plenty, but I would bet on Bill getting the majority of the reps between the two. There has been this steady drumbeat of Washington beat reporters saying Bill looks more explosive and also that he's been getting more going in the pass game than in past years. The explosive note should not be anything crazy, even as someone who has drafted a lot of Rachaad White this past, 6 months or so. I think we can all agree that Rachaad White is hardly someone that we have crowned as an awesome, explosive rusher of the football over the past 4 seasons. I like White for what he can do consistency-wise and what he can do catching the football. But let's face it, 1 year, $2 million. Does he even have $1 million guaranteed? Yeah, he does. 1.7. But yeah, 1 year, $2 million contract. Now, Jacory Croskey-Merritt was a day 3 pick. Not like he's making a ton of money year in, year out, but the only competition that was brought in was Rachaad White and 6th-rounder Jonathon Allen, who did some good things at Penn State. Don't get me wrong. He did eventually lap Nicholas Singleton down the stretch. But man, as much as Jacory Croskey-Merritt, maybe you can argue, I guess it's true. He didn't live up to the fantasy hype we put on him in August. He still had a good rookie year, though, guys. This was a 7th-round pick. And he wound up at over 870 yards from scrimmage and 8 touchdowns. He had some huge games. That Chargers one early on, the Cowboys late. Had some ball security stuff going on. Seemed to hit a little bit of a rookie wall. It happens. If we weren't so freaking crazy wired up about fantasy, we'd just be looking at Jacory Croskey-Merritt as, wow, what a great 7th-round pick by Washington. Hell of a promising rookie year. Good for this dude. But we're crazy. And that's okay. I'm crazy with you guys. Why it makes sense to see Bill rising up the draft board? Again, these ambiguous backfields, this is why I want you guys to draft them. I want you to embrace the uncertainty because the second we do find out good things about them, we see the cream of the crop rise up. And yeah, you're taking a risk, but that's why they're so cheap in the first place. It's the same thing in Minnesota and Washington. And we saw it last year with the Cowboys and Javonte Williams, and we saw it with the Jaguars and Travis Etienne. Washington ranked 5th in scoring in 2025. 5th. And that wasn't with some loaded cast of weapons that they suddenly don't have. If anything, their playmakers look better. I'd be more concerned about the Laramie Tunsil-less offensive line. Terry, Diggs, Chig, Bill and White. I understand I'm not describing this electric group of supporting playmakers here. But look at what it was in 2024. It was Terry, Diami Brown, Zach Ertz. Was Noah Brown out there? Like, it was not that great, guys. You know what was great? Jaden Daniels, and he's back. Jonathon Allen has mostly just been leading the backups in the preseason. Now, we do have this undisclosed injury going on with Bill. No reason to believe it's serious. We'll see what happens. Monitor it. Rachaad White's also been out. He had the hamstring. He has returned to practice as I'm recording this on a Monday. But we did see in week 1 at least, when Croskey-Merritt was healthy, him getting starters rest. That has been echoed by the reporters at training camp. It seems like in this muddled backfield in August, we have now found out that the 2 clear leaders were Bill Croskey-Merritt and Rachaad White. And that's good. Why this rise in ADP doesn't make sense. We still don't know what this split really looks like. Shout out Ben Standig. I love when beat reporters actually try to give us the usage notes. That's all we really want. in fantasy football land. It's easier to not do it because there's some dickheads amongst our fantasy community. They go slander people. Please don't be that guy or girl, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Could Bill be the clear one? Yeah, but it's the same thing with Brooks and Chuba, man. If it's 70-30, that's amazing. And Croskey-Merritt's a massive value. If it's 50-50, or if it's 40-40 with Katron taking 20, that's not something we're quite as excited about. They've been throwing the ball more to Bill. Is that in 7-on-7? You know what I'm saying? Rachaad White's no joke with that. Since he entered the NFL, Rachaad White, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, only 3 running backs with at least 200 receptions. He's reliable too. What we talk about? Issue with Bill last year, some of the pass pro stuff, some of the ball security stuff. Last season, only had Rachaad White, Chris Rodriguez, and Brian Robinson. Those are the only 3 players with 100+ combined carries and targets and 0 total drops or fumbles. Rachaad White being on the same list as Chris Rodriguez. And Rodriguez wasn't a pass catcher. I get it. That's what they used Jeremy McNichols for, who's still on the team. I don't know if he's going to make it necessarily. They brought in Jerome Ford. They got Robert Henry Jr. out there too. But while we don't look at the other competition around Jacory and say, wow, yeah, that's really steep. It wasn't steep last year, and it still didn't exactly help him keep the job for the entirety of the season in an offense that doesn't have all that much turnover. David Blau was the assistant to the quarterback coach, assistant quarterback coach, one of those. Ha. We don't know what this split will look like. And I'm still fine. Ultimately, verdict, I am fine buying a Washington Commander RB. In fact, I like to do so in drafts of most shapes and sizes. Pittsburgh, Washington, and Minnesota, to me, feel like the 3 most ambiguous ones. And accordingly, we're not even really getting an overly sought after front runner. I know Pittsburgh's a little more expensive out there. I believe that's because we probably feel a little better about Rico and Jalen talent wise. It's a geriatric old dude under center. He's going to be feeding them a lot of targets. But man, these are exactly the backfields we should be targeting guys late. Because the other thing is, they're going around handcuffs pretty much as it is. And Bill and Rachaad still have good handcuff value. If one goes down, the other one's going to be shooting up. So even if you draft the wrong Washington RB or the wrong Vikings RB, it's not like you're completely screwed. Yeah, I hope to get the right one. And I will say right now, I have Bill ranked higher. I have Bill RB34 and Rachaad White RB35. You know what that means, though? When one of these alleged fantasy experts like myself ranks 2 teammates right next to each other, that's a little code for we don't really know who's going to lead the way. I prefer Bill right now. I think he's going to lead the way in touches. I can see Rachaad White being more in that Austin Eckler role that we saw in 2024 alongside Brian Robinson. Maybe more, but maybe he doesn't get all the pass game stuff if some of the words are to be believed out of training camp. So is the gap that's emerging between Bill and Rachaad White warranted? That I don't know as much. I probably sell that idea, but I still want to be buying Washington Commanders running backs in my fantasy drafts. Next up, we got Packers RB MarShawn Lloyd, August 1, RB 58, pick 195, August 24th, RB 50, pick 152. Why has Lloyd moved up the ranks? It's pretty easy here. He is actually healthy and getting through training camp for once. We've also seen Josh Jacobs have his own health issues, namely a groin injury and legal situation issues pop up. So he has returned to practice, reportedly looks good. My dear friend / lawyer / awesome fantasy football auction professional, awesome dude. Great job title right there, Ian. All right. He does not think, from what he knows now, that's very likely Jacobs gets suspended. Let's assume he doesn't. But it's out there. It's more than 0%, but let's assume he doesn't. Lloyd is the clear number 2 RB and a usually pretty damn good Packers offense that has historically, under Matt LaFleur, leaned into committees more than we've seen over the past 2 years. And that's the weird game we have to play here. Josh Jacobs had 337 touches in 2024. He had 270 in 15 games last season. We previously had not seen Matt LaFleur lean on a running back that much. He split touches between Derrick Henry and freaking Dion Lewis in Tennessee. Then we had the free Aaron Jones years, first with Jamal Williams, then with A.J. Dillon. Josh Jacobs wore down at the end of last year. Is MarShawn Lloyd a pure backup, or could it be a little 60-40 Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, David Montgomery, Woody Marks-ish? Could Lloyd take over the backfield? No, please don't turn me off. All right, that was a joke. It's a bad joke. It's not happening. I get it. But Lloyd did look good. Looked good in that 11-yard touchdown, man. Seemed like he was the design first read. Left the linebacker freaking dusted, man. Gave me nightmares as a former slow linebacker. We got an explosive, pass-catching, friendly running back. That is the only backup show in town, pretty much. Chris Brooks was back for preseason week 2. 71% snaps for Lloyd, 29% snaps for Brooks. I don't know that Lloyd would have this 90% snap roll if Jacobs goes down. I ranked him more so around RB 15, I think it was where I landed on when I went through where every RB2 would rank if the RB1 was out of the picture. But we like the offense. We don't love the offensive line. RotoWire has him 30th, dealing with some turnover. But one thing you'll read in that, one thing you'll read from Mr. Thorne over at ETR, great play caller minds like Matt LaFleur, like Liam Cohen, Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson, they tend to be able to make do. They can scheme around it. That's why this makes sense. We like the play caller. We like the offense. We got a clear-cut RB2 with a skill set archetype we like. Why does this not make sense? We're probably not really getting standalone value. Pretty rare that happens. That you actually feel good enough about a clear number 2 running back to put in your flex. We always fantasize about it in August. And then week 2 comes around. Lloyd has 3 carries, 2 targets for 9 yards. And we feel pretty stupid for having thought that was going to be the case. Chris Brooks also, not to put too much into preseason stuff, but I did find this notable. He outsnapped Lloyd 4-2 on 3rd and 4th downs. He notably had the only 2 pass blocking snaps. I've seen good research from my dear friend Hayden Winks pointing out that not as many fantasy points as you would expect go to running backs on 3rd down in the first place. We probably overrate that role. Still nice to have, though. And this was Brooks' first game back from his own hamstring injury. How the turntables. Lloyd, it was a nice touchdown, but I will say, similar to Jonathon Brooks, hasn't exactly been just killing it. We've heard good things out of practice, which probably matters more at the end of the day and what he does in the joint scrimmages and things like that. Hasn't looked like a god out there, you know? If Josh Jacobs got suspended for the whole season, like, do we really think Green Bay would stand pat? Say, all right, MarShawn Lloyd and Chris Brooks, an organization that fancies them, I believe, as Super Bowl contender every year. You don't think they had another RB there? Damian Martinez, RB3, no problem. This does profile as a situation where they could call it James Conner. Maybe they signed Trey Benson, who just got cut today. Pour one out. I wouldn't put the Packers at the top of the list of backfields that I would expect this to be the case. That list, where I think the current handcuff frontrunner would likely be displaced by a free agent, Kareem Hunt, or someone like James Conner. Chiefs, Colts, Ravens, Cowboys, Bengals. Maybe I could name 5-6 more ahead of the Packers. I don't know if I could name 10 more. Now, it's not like there's 30 high-end running backs sitting out there you need to be worrying about. That's another case. But Hunt and Conner, man, I want these guys settled so we can stop worrying about this for situations such as this. So this doesn't make sense because standalone value is unlikely. And while Lloyd is the next man up for now, it's hardly something that we can be guaranteed of, considering Brooks is there, and to a bigger extent, the potential for someone like James Conner to come into town. That said, we've examined both sides of the equation. My verdict, I'm buying, guys. Year 3 of standing this dude. You think I'm going to back down now? Not today, Satan. He's my RB46. I have him right there with Tajay Spears, with Woody Marks. Don't get too wild, but man, I said it once, I'll say it again. Every draft is a great draft to draft MarShawn Lloyd. He's the exact sort of late round pick we should be prioritizing. And man, we can get this dude regularly, around 13 plus. Sounds good to me, man. In home leagues, I know. And if you guys are out there, again, grinding it in FFPC, NFC, all the high stakes streets, respect. I love you. I'm there too. I just feel like the bigger majority of dudes are out there now, ESPN. So it's always kind of a juggle, like, all right, is he really going to be available that late? But that's where I'm at with some of the ADP. Guys, one more big one to break down. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at Splash Survivor, because we got not one, but two fantastic Survivor contests that I do invite you guys to check out, because there is a lot of chance to win a lot of money and also a lot of chance to beat down myself and Theo Greminger in these Survivor streets. We got the RotoWire 100K NFL Survivor. It's a traditional Survivor league with a $15 entry fee, and also the RotoWire 50K Touchdown Survivor. This is player-based, essentially an anytime touchdown Survivor league, $25 entry fee for that one. So again, $150,000 here is at stake between the two contests. If you want to enter them both, it would only be a $40 entry fee, but actually it could even be less than that, because if you go to splashsports.com/RotoWire, promo code RotoWire will get you a 50% deposit match and a 100% payout boost. Again, that's splashsports.com/RotoWire, promo code RotoWire for 50% deposit match and 100% payout boost. Shout out to our friends over at Splash Survivor. Last but not least, actually maybe first, Rams tight end Terrance Ferguson, guys. August 1 ADP, tight end 27, pick 186 here as we stand on August 24th, though. Tight end 20, pick 161. Hasn't played in the preseason, nor has pretty much every player of consequence in Los Angeles. So the reason why he has been moving up, a lot of it is glowing training camp reports. We did hear about the Rams scrimmaging the Dallas Cowboys, and T-Ferg giving the Cowboys, hopefully, maybe, just maybe, improved first-team defense. A lot of work throughout that day. Ferguson himself, and some Sean McVay has echoed, has said that he's been asked to play F, Z, Y, and X, being moved all around the formation. And the Athletics' Nate Atkins has said, quote, believes tight ends is not a quote. I guess I summarized it, but you can imagine. He believes the tight ends will be a committee, but Ferguson will emerge from the group as a player worthy of an every week game plan role. That's all good things. Now, Sean McVay said a lot of good things about a lot of guys over the years, okay? You can find glowing reports about Jarquez Hunter last offseason. You can find good stuff about Terrance Ferguson. I think it was during last season, him talking about Ferguson, wanting to get him the ball a little more often, it just wasn't really happening. So it has changed, though. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum weren't exactly getting much of anything going as rookies. Kyron had some injuries. Blake was still coming back from that devastating knee one he had in college, but weren't getting much going on. If you look at the roster, it would make sense for Ferguson to take a step up, particularly with this team not having made a wide receiver move of consequence pretty much all offseason. It's Puka and Devontae Adams. With all due respect to Konato Munfield. It's just those two guys right now, man. And they're going to lean in their multi-tight end formations. But man, if we could get a leader in this group, there's certainly enough meat on the bone. Last season, if we had a team tight end position in fantasy football, the Cardinals would be number one, thanks to Trey McBride. The number two highest scoring tight end room in all fantasy football in total PPR points last year was, you guessed it, the Los Angeles Rams. Terrance Ferguson led all tight ends in yards per catch at 21 last season. That's a ridiculous amount for a tight end. 52% of his targets came 20-plus yards downfield. The next closest guy was at 21%. They were using him as a tight end field stretcher option. Not even a seam stretcher. He was being used down the field. He only had, I believe it was 9 catches. I'll tell you what, 11 catches. Excuse me. One of the best 11 catch seasons I've ever seen. Isaac Tesla, Mitchell Tinsley, they're kind of in the same group there, but here's my thing with the tight end being used downfield. It's not like Ferguson is this, respectfully, Aronde Gadsden. Oh, he's a wide receiver who's putting his hand in the ground. 6'5", 250, man. From Oregon, who slowly but surely, don't look now, is kind of becoming the new tight end U. Still want to give, Penn State, Notre Dame. I'm sure there's other teams who have had very good ones coming out, but Ferguson's like the opposite, the anti-Tyler Warren in terms of the dudes he was able to keep on the bench when he was out there, man. Kenyon Sadiq, round 1 pick. Who's this guy they got now? Jefferson? The other tight end they have is already in those way too early mock drafts. This is really important. I find his name, guys. We got to wait on this. Jamari Johnson. Remember that name. Terrance Ferguson kept those dudes chilling. He will carry top 10 upside on a weekly basis with a full-time role in this offense. If we get through week 1 and he has a 75 or more % route rate, Terrance Ferguson will be a consensus top 10, if not top 6, tight end in fantasy football. That is how we treated Dalton Kincaid going into not last season, maybe it was last season. Kincaid has constantly been someone we've had up there. Look at what Oronde Gadsden did last year with a full-time role. When given the opportunity to basically be tight end 1, wide receiver 3, and an offense that we really like passing the football. There's Puka and there's Adams for sure. Puka, a little banged up. Don't look now. Matthew Stafford guy. What do you win? The MVP? He's pretty good. Ferguson has field stretching ability, which is rare at the position. He's built like an actual true inline tight end. I'm not worried about him doing the underneath stuff. Again, we just heard from him and McVay. They're using him all over the field. I'm pretty sure he can run a drag. I don't know with a lot of other tight ends if they can stretch the field. That's a concern. To me, that's the club in your bag. That's a lot harder to come by. We love the skill set. We love the offense. We love the price and fantasy. We just got to see if the usage is going to be there. But it could be. Based on what we're hearing in training camp, it sounds very promising. Why this price hike doesn't make sense. It probably still makes sense for the Rams to use a tight end by committee system. You know who else has been sitting all preseason? Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee, and Davis Allen. Allen's been a little bit banged up. We've seen Max Clare out there, though. They felt good enough about this dude to use a round day 2 pick on the guy. I know Max Clare didn't do much for my Buckeyes last year. Looked great at Purdue. If they like what they have in Max Clare and they legit make 5 tight ends active on game days, each of which they trust reasonably enough to catch the football, that could be a problem. Last year, even with Tyler Higbee out for most of the season, it's not like Ferguson stepped up. That was Colby Parkinson. Ferguson played under 50% of the snaps in all but 3 games last year. Honestly, his role went up when Devontae Adams got hurt. That was kind of what did it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The offense is going through Puka and Adams. Right now, RotoWire projections have Ferguson leading the way among Rams tight ends and targets with 59. That's 30th at the position. I don't think he's going to keep averaging 21 yards per catch on a more normal role. All that said, my verdict, I'm buying, guys. Terrance Ferguson is my favorite late-round tight end click in all of fantasy football. He's my tight end 18. I got him just behind Chig Okonkwo and Jauan Johnson. He's ahead of Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange, A.J. Barner. I feel like Henry, Strange, and Barner, we know who they are. And maybe they spike and they convert, 12 of their 61 catches into touchdowns. They have one of those seasons. It's possible. We know they're going to be in near full-time roles. If they aren't, it's going to be a surprise. If Eli Raridan or, Elijah Arroyo step up, it would be a surprise. Chig and Jauan Johnson, we are expecting full-time roles. Oronde Gadsden and Terrance Ferguson are the 2 late-round tight ends, where if we get a big-time shift in what we're expecting in week 1 usage, it is going to be huge in fantasy land. Unlike with Oronde Gadsden, who we've seen consistently work behind Charlie Kolar and work behind David Njoku in the preseason, we can actually feel good about Terrance Ferguson because we haven't seen it, and that uncertainty has helped rise him up to fantasy ranks. So if you are in a situation, you miss out on Brock Bowers, you miss out on Colston Loveland, my next best thing is to go wait in the late rounds. Please, for the love of God, don't enter week 1 with T. Ferg as your guy. But whether it's Dallas Goedert, whether it's Chig Okonkwo, whether it's Jauan Johnson, Jake Ferguson, get one of those more quote-unquote boring options. Boring's not the right word. the higher floor option, and then go get yourself a lottery ticket that's basically free in the firm of Terrance Ferguson. I love it. Sign me up. I love you guys for hanging out again. If you like the show, please like the show. And that subscribe button always works out as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this again. Just look at some of the changing ADP landscape pieces. I'm going to be back here soon looking at kind of the other side of the equation, guys who have been falling in the ranks. And if that is also something we should be worried about or something we should maybe be embracing and looking for opportunity. More and more goodness, though, on the way. Going to have my ultimate strategy guide for drafts out on rotowire.com this week. Have my week 2 preseason breakdown go out. And also going to be doing a little DST goodness. All right. As much as I hate kickers, I don't mind DSTs. Heart of hearts, yeah, probably still don't want to deal with them. But as again, a guy who played football more and more years ago, every time I mentioned it, was on the defensive side more years than not. So got to show out for the real football players out there on the field. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Appreciate you for tuning in. As always, I'm Ian Hartitz. Until next time, take care, everybody.